After World War I, the Royal Hungarian Army faced severe limitations regarding its size and capabilities. The Great War was followed by two revolutions, a brief war against her neighbors, then the restoration of the monarchy, this time without a king. The 1920 Treaty of Trianon allowed Hungary to maintain a small volunteer army without any heavy weapons, vehicles, or aircraft. Nonetheless, secret rearmament commenced already in the 1920s, followed by more open attempts to circumvent the restrictions. These attempts resulted in the creation of a tiny armored force, along with the first domestic tank design. Interestingly, the first tankets had been purchased from Germany just before the signing of the peace treaty in 1920. In total, 14 were then delivered in complete secrecy on the Danube, hidden under large shipments of wheat. However, due to the presence of the Allied Military Commission, the LK2 tankets had to remain in storage, waiting for assembly until 1927. By that time, only 6 of them could be assembled, so these joined the newly established Armour Company, which by 1930 also had a handful of armored cars, 3 Carden-Loyd Mark III tankets, and the newly purchased Fiat 3000B tanks, a licensed version of the original Renault FT. These were of course obsolete by that time, so in 1933 they had to be written off, which also meant that modern alternatives were needed. While the officials were looking at foreign designs, a domestic opportunity arose thanks to the cooperation between the Manfred Weiss Steel Works and Nicholas Straussler, a Hungarian-born British designer who had specialized in floating systems but was increasingly looking towards the field of tanks. He promised a vehicle that could travel on road using wheels but could rely on detachable tracks for traversing difficult terrain. It would also float and cross rivers easily, which was something several armies were looking into at the time. He had already signed a contract with the British military, but manufacturing in Hungary was much cheaper, so according to the 1933 contract, he would keep one sample of each of his vehicles in Hungary. This included the AC-1 armored car, which would later become the AC-2, then the 39M Chaba, the mountain tractor, and the main body of the B-3, which could only receive its turret and weapons in Great Britain due to the restrictions. The Defense Ministry, which lacked money after the Great Depression and was still bound by sanctions, purchased the license to manufacture this vehicle, which officially was a tractor, not a tank. At the end of 1935, the prototype was ready, so early trials could begin in January with a 100 horsepower engine, a crew of 3, a driver, a machine gunner, and a commander, and light armor of 9 to 23 millimeters. By June, its turret was completed as well, so field trials could continue, revealing several reliability and other technical issues. The V3 broke down all the time. It had a tendency to throw off its tracks, while the suspension was too stiff. The 6.5-ton vehicle could not reach the desired maximum speed, 45 kilometers per hour on tracks and 10 kilometers per hour on water, even after receiving a stronger 140 horsepower engine. British trials revealed similar issues with the engine, the tracks, the suspension, and overall reliability. Because of this, the War Office decided to choose the light tank Mark VI, which had been delivered by Vickers Armstrong. A Soviet delegation then visited Straussler, who agreed to ship the prototype to the Soviet Union for further testing. The results were similar, and further attempts to fix the existing issues ultimately remained unsuccessful. Therefore, by 1938, the Soviets also abandoned the project. In the meantime, the Hungarians were able to secure a larger shipment of Italian tankets manufactured by Fiat Ansaldo. Overall, 150 Carro Veloce CV-33 and CV-35 were obtained by 1937. These would then form tank platoons and companies within the newly established 2 motorized and 2 cavalry brigades. The army also received a Swedish Landsverk L60 light tank for testing to see if it could be manufactured later on. However, Straussler's design was not abandoned either, with both sides contributing ideas for further improvement of the V3. Work had already started in the second half of 1936, and the first prototype of the V4 was delivered in March 1937. The V4 was a considerably heavier tank, weighing almost 10 tons, with a similar leaf spring suspension and a new hexagonal turret, along with a 40mm Bofors cannon and a Gebauer twin machine gun. The original 4-cylinder engine was replaced with a new 8-cylinder unit with 180 horsepower, so the vehicle could now achieve the desired speed. This was 60 km per hour on wheels, 40 km per hour on tracks, and 8 km per hour on water. The tracks were also modified to prevent the known issues from occurring again, and subsequent trials in mid-1937 showed significant progress. High Command was satisfied with the results, but new or remaining issues were also mentioned. For one, the V4 was very tall, just surpassing 2 meters. Its riveted armor was poorly angled, which made the tank vulnerable to enemy fire. Also, its front and back were sitting too low, so the vehicle could get stuck while going uphill or rolling over obstacles. The gearbox was sensitive and prone to breakdowns, so even though the detachable tracks could now be carried on the tank itself, requiring a 30-minute effort from a team of 6, reliability was still not optimal. Recommendations were made to include a loader in the crew, along with a machine gun in the turret, which the commander could operate. In August 1937, the V4 was compared to the L60 and the German Panzerkampfwagen I light tanks, with good results. The Panzer I was declared to be outdated, while the experts recommended the commissioning of both the V4 and the L60. In September, the V4 was shipped to Italy for possible export. However, trials revealed that the tank was not suited for traversing mountainous terrain, so the Italians quickly lost interest. Their Hungarian counterparts were not deterred, so a second version of the V4 was then built and delivered for testing. It now offered a larger turret and a slightly raised hull, along with a small cupola for the commander. In June 1938, another trial was held, during which the engine proved to be too weak for the now 12-ton tank, which also had small hatches for the crew, the same stiff suspension, and poor off-road experience. The detachable tracks, originally desired by the Defense Ministry, were found to be unnecessarily complicated and unneeded, especially in the new situation in which Hungary had found itself in 1938. The remaining restrictions were lifted, so the country could now purchase and build armor, so more foreign partners were willing to cooperate with the previously isolated kingdom. Once the Győr program was announced in March, the army finally had enough money to modernize and expand. This was followed in August by the Bled Agreement, in which the Little Entente agreed to Hungary's open rearmament, so larger purchases could now be made, and the V4 suddenly lost its relevance. It had been the only viable option even in its half-ready state, but now, with the possibility of more foreign purchases, it made much more sense to obtain a proven and ready tank or design. The decision was therefore made to cancel the previously placed order for the first 10 tanks and a possible purchase of a larger series of 100 vehicles. Instead, the ministry turned to a rival of Manfred Weiss, Mavag, the Hungarian Royal State Iron, Steel and Machine Factories, to manufacture the Swedish L60 light tank under license. After several modifications by Hungarian engineers, the new tank received a 20mm anti-tank cannon, along with Gebauer machine guns, to become the first modern tank of the Royal Hungarian Army. At the same time, the second prototype of the V4 lost its own armament, and it was then used for towing until 1944. After the fall of Budapest, The Red Army captured the vehicle and shipped it to the Soviet Union, where it eventually disappeared. Thus ended Hungary's domestic project to build a modern tank, to be followed by several others that were mainly built on foreign designs.